Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 119 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. This week, I've got a lot of stuff to cover this week because, well, I've been off for a while. I took 2 weeks off at Christmas just because, well, it was the holidays and, I was just burned out and I needed some time. And before I had an opportunity to come back on the air, Wednesday, as a matter of fact, is when I normally do the podcast. And it was, in fact, Wednesday during the day while I was at work that I got a phone call that unfortunately someone close to me had passed away. And so that's where I was for about a week. And dealing with that, and when I came back on a Wednesday, and quite honestly, after having to deal with that for a week, I just couldn't. I thought about it, and I just couldn't do a podcast. I was not in the right frame of mind, and so that's where I've been. So 2 weeks of vacation and basically 2 weeks off dealing with family issues, and but I am back, and I am very, very happy to be back. So, okay, so what do we got this week? All right. First off, during the time off, I had a trip to the barbershop. I want to tell you about that. Met an interesting character there. It was just kind of fun. And, just start off with something light, a shave of the day, and some soaps that I was using, some soaps that I've gotten, a mail call, and that's all good stuff there. One of the things that I have stressed often on this podcast, and hopefully it's taken to heart, especially by, younger people, you need to try. Even if you fail, that's okay. You at least need to try, whether that be shaving or, in fact, other things in life, and have a little bit about that. You learn from your mistakes, or you learn from, just getting out there and trying. A review of the soaps that I have been using this, month almost, for the most part. And those soaps are made by Brian, and those soaps are Jeeves of Hudson Street. I've got the 3 soaps, and I've used 2 of them so far, and I'll tell you all about those. A quick snippet on a commercial. I finally got to watch a commercial, saw the whole thing, and realized that that's what I was looking at. Usually for me, commercials are just noise. If I'm watching a show, during the commercial, I'll get up and do something. It's I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but, for me, the commercials are the worst part. If they'd get rid of those darn things, TV would be a whole lot better. But so I really don't pay a whole lot of attention. I finally saw the Micro Touch 1 commercial. There was just something about it that struck me. So during part of my off time, if you will, there was a bit of traveling, and I traveled up into parts of the country that were getting rained on heavily, and lo and behold, my mobile studio let me down. Yeah, well, I'll talk about it. Basically, what do you do in those situations when water goes places, you really don't want it to go? In addition to the travels and everything, I also had an opportunity to try to be a little bit more prepared. And so on my trips and travels in the mobile studio, I happened to have a couple of gas cans filled with gas, just in case as part of the trip. And I wanted to see how they would work. And so I'll tell you all about that. They work flawlessly. And in fact, someone recently emailed me and asked me and said, "Where did you get your cans?" I'm interested in some of those types of NATO jerry cans, and where do you get them? Well, for me, I get them at the Lexington Container Company, and so I'll put a link up in the show notes. But yeah, I get them at Lexington Container Company, and unfortunately, right now, they're out of the red ones. They've got other colors, but they're out of the red ones. And right now, the ones that I've got are red. They've got, like the olive green and yellow for diesel fuel and black and blue for kerosene. I don't know what the black is for. I don't know what you would use black for. Anyhow, the olive green or the forest green, if you will, that's typical jerry can color. If you happen to see a jerry can on the back of a Jeep, if it's an old military surplus one, typically it's that green color. And those, I believe those they have in stock and everything, but they're $50. And Lexington Container Company. They've got all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of other containers, surplus ammo cans and big containers, pickle barrels. I mean, they got about everything. So yeah, Lexington Container Company. They're over in Kentucky, and for me, the nice thing about it is they've got free shipping. And all in all, it's good stuff. So I'll throw a link in there, and all that. But that's where I get my my cans, and they worked great on the trips that the trip that I made, and so all in all, I'll also tell you about how I get the stuff out of the can and into the truck. It's you don't have to hold the can up and pour if you don't want to. And realistically, on new vehicles with all their tamper-proof devices and everything, you end up spilling half of it anyhow. It just makes a mess. So there you go. I also want to send out a thank you, a very special thank you to a vendor. And I'll tell you all about that. But here's a vendor that just, on the asking of, hey, it would be neat if you did this. Yeah, he stepped up. And I want to thank him publicly for it. That vendor is none other than Tryablade, and I will tell you why in this segment. Another shave of the day, how I went and fixed my mobile studio after the water incident. And then the nice thing about that, and it goes along with what I said at the beginning, a lot of times, all you need to do is try. A little research. I mean, we've got research and materials at our fingertips nowadays with YouTube and Google and all this. And you can save a lot of money if you just, again, try. So, good stuff. Then... Okay, so I hadn't been in my mobile studio for a while, at least not hooked up and actually recording, and lo and behold, I ran into something that was, a bit of a surprise. I had never known that about my mobile studio, but lo and behold, it kind of caught me off guard. I was, trying to do something, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and finally I realized what was happening. Didn't expect that one. A shave of the day, and we'll end up with a shave of the day. That'll be the end of the normal broadcast. We'll have the normal closing music, and then if you care to hang around, and if you don't, I fully understand. But if you care to hang around, I will talk a little bit about what I have learned in the issue that I was dealing with in the last couple of weeks, specifically about wills and letters of instruction and things like that. And, the subtitle of that little segment is, a different kind of preparedness. At the end of the day, what I try to do is no matter what faces me, no matter what issues I go through, the question that I ask myself is, okay, this may be tough, this may be unpleasant, this may be something that I really don't want to deal with, but at the end of the day, what can I learn from it? And in asking that question, it changes the perspective sometimes enough to make whatever it is I'm dealing with bearable and tolerable, to the point where, okay, if, this sucks, but if I can learn something from it, if I can walk away from it with a positive, maybe it is in fact a positive and not necessarily a negative. So a different kind of preparedness. Anyhow, that's the show for this week. Thank you very much for being out there. Thank you very much for allowing me this time off. The first 2 weeks were needed just to recharge. The last 2 weeks, if I could give them back and do the podcast, yeah, I'd do that. But there you go. It happens. It's inevitable. It is a guarantee of life. It's just the way it is. So anyhow, that's the show this week. Thank you for being there. Thank you for contacting me, during this whole time off and asking me questions and wanting to know what the heck's going on and things like that. Again, I appreciate all you guys being out there. Let's get on with this show. Well, another successful trip to the barbershop, and I just have a lot of fun times when I visit the barbershop. So, and this was no exception. A good time at the barbershop. No, this was no exception. The first thing is there's something about a neighborhood barbershop where people know each other and, sit around and talk and, nobody runs out and in and out, and it's a place for a bunch of guys to get together and relax, and it's good stuff, okay? So if you haven't found a decent barbershop, go out and find one because, they're worth it. Now, the other thing is just a quick report on the barbershop. I ran into a fellow Navy veteran. And not only was he a fellow Navy veteran, he was a fellow Brownwater Navy veteran and a fellow ham operator. So it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. He was stationed for a while at Little Creek in the amphib base there, and I was too for a short stint. So that was pretty cool. He was a ham radio operator, had been in the area a while, hadn't joined any clubs, and so we were talking a little bit about the different clubs that are in the area and the repeaters and all this other stuff, and so that was pretty cool. Had a good time talking to him. And then proceeded to jump in the chair and talk to my barber about, the AutoStrops and what I found out about them. And that was always fun. And, while he's given me a decent haircut and, all that, I can share my fun and adventures of wet shaving and finding razors and things like that. And he was absolutely intrigued by the mechanism on the AutoStrop, so that was great. All in all, another great visit to a local barbershop. So like I said, if you don't have a local barbershop or if you haven't been to one, go see if you can find one and, make it home. I received a mail call the other day. Happened to be 3 soaps from Jeeves of Hudson Street, and I decided to go ahead and purchase a couple. And the one that I tried this morning was Turkish Bath. Now, first off, the soap is kind of a brown soap. It's a little bit softer than soap, or at least most soaps that I'm used to. It's just kind of a softer thing. It looks to be it's smooth on one side, and it's got some nice ridges on the other side. Now, to me, those ridges could be used to hold it more securely inside a bowl or something like that. I, of course, use a plastic Ziploc container to hold my soaps, and so I used it to make sure that, I loaded my brush very, very nicely. So I did it with the ridge side up. So it may be, not what you're supposed to do, but hey, that's what I felt like doing, so that's what I did. Now, the soap itself has a very nice feel. I was impressed with the glide. There was a good bit of residual glide in this soap. Had good cushion. I used it with my Gem Featherweight Single Edge with a PAL Carbon Steel, which is my preference for those particular razors. Most single edge, I prefer the carbon steel blades in them. And it was a very, very nice shave. Very good lather. Didn't have any issues. It was a bit thirsty. I ended up putting 2 teaspoons of water in it. It was just a bit thirsty in order to get a very nice lather. But again, not a problem. If you have a soap that's thirsty, that's great, as long as you understand that that's what it needs. Again, it goes back to consistency. If you can get a soap that you like and that you enjoy, and you figure out what combination of your particular water, lathering method, bowls, whatever, works best, then you've unlocked the key to that soap's best performance, and you can carry on with your shaves quite nicely with that. So a couple of teaspoons of water to create a very, very nice, thick, luxurious lather. Lathered up, shave, 3-pass shave with a touch-up. Again, the glide was very, very nice. There was enough residual that if I went over a spot and just kind of felt it and didn't feel like I had gotten quite close enough, I could go over again gently in the same spot without any worries of dragging or skipping or any harshness or anything like that. So I was good residual glide. The smell is, it's got a light tobacco smell. Very, very nice. Lighter than Cavendish, but it was very, very nice. Again, it's a very intriguing scent. It's I really enjoyed it. This is my first time with this soap, so I'm just telling you the thing that jumps to mind, and it was just a very light, pleasant tobacco scent. Really, really enjoyed it. It's kind of made the morning, really. It really, really was nice. So if you are a tobacco scent person, one that enjoys that like I do, this may be a good soap. Now, the puck of soap I bought, it was a refill. It's just a puck. It was like $8, which is an excellent price. And so far, I'm real happy with it. First go, yeah, good stuff. So great shave, 3-pass, like I said, with a little bit of touch-up, pretty much BBS. And this is on a carbon steel blade that's had 3-4 shaves on it already. So no issues there. Didn't have any problems. Thoroughly enjoyed the shave this morning. Very relaxed. Of course, it helps that I'm on vacation and have absolutely nothing to rush for. So good stuff there. So hopefully you guys are enjoying a little bit of time off as well. Well deserved, I'm sure. And keep up the good stuff and keep having those good, glorious morning shaves. So I was reminded the other day of what I have said on numerous occasions to numerous people. You have never succeeded at anything until you have failed miserably at it at least once or twice. I mean, if you think about it, there's nothing a human being has ever done well the first time that they've tried it. Now, it may look from the outside like they have achieved perfection, but deep in their hearts they know, I messed this up and I messed that up. I mean, there is pretty much nothing that human beings do that we get perfectly the first time. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from our errors. And the thing that implies is that we have to go out there and try in order to, have those mistakes and errors. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. So, with that said, I was instructing a young man how to parallel park. Now, you must understand that parallel parking, at least in this part of the country in this day and age, is something that, just isn't done. However, it is a very good testament, if you will, to understanding your vehicle, the limits of your vehicle size-wise, and the manipulation of the vehicle, appropriately. In other words, can you handle the rig that you're driving? So, Upon coming up to the place to parallel park, the first question was, well, what are you going to do? Talk me through it. And very little response. A few other words were passed, and next thing you know, a sigh and, I'm a failure. Wait a minute. A failure? You haven't even tried yet. But, look, if you don't try, you'll never get good at it at all. You will never succeed in anything unless you try. Yes, you might fail. Yes, you might screw up. But if you don't try, you will never go anywhere. You will never grow. You will never move past where you are now. Okay. And lo and behold, upon trying, success was had. But the thing is that there was a hesitancy, a block, a no, I can't attitude that got in the way of finding out whether or not success was even possible. So, here's the question for you. Are there things that you don't want to try because you're scared of failing? And then the next question is, well, how badly do you want success? Because if you've never tried and never failed, there is no way that you can ever achieve success. Now, the first step in anything is getting up out of the chair with the attitude, yes, I'm going to do this. And without that, success is just sitting there in the chair waiting for you to, well, get up. Let's try this again. So apparently cold weather is not appreciated by the batteries in my recorder in the truck. It's a beautiful day today, but it is just a bit cold out here. It's about 30 degrees, which is a bit much, well, not much, different from what we have been used to, because we have been enjoying weather in the 70s, and it's just now dropped down into, well, colder temperatures. So, anyhow, it is the first Monday of 2016. Boy, I didn't think I'd be saying that for a while. The clock is ticking away quickly, isn't it? And so 2016, first day back at work, and here we go. So it's a good day, beautiful sunshiny day, open blue sky. It's kind of nice out here. A little chilly. It's about 32 degrees, so all is good with the world. The break that I took, the 2-week break, was fabulous. So first off, thank you for letting me, and really enjoyed it. Had a great time. Now, one of the opportunities that I took is right before the holidays. I got a mail call for 3 brand new soaps from Jeeves of Hudson Street, otherwise known as Brian. And so the Jeeves soap that I was playing with basically for about a week or so during that time period was called Turkish Bath, which is a tobacco and bay scented soap from Jeeves on Hudson Street. Now, there's a couple opportunities there. You have the opportunity of picking up the soap in a container. I chose to get it just the puck, and the puck was $8, which is a fantastic price for a puck of soap. Now, as far as the performance of the soap, I enjoyed this soap a lot. I really did. It lathered great, although it was just a tad thirsty. It did marvelously in my little electric scuttle. Really, really came out and kind of, I don't know, shown what it was all about in that setup. Really enjoyed it. So lathering was easy. It's a good lathering soap. Did a very nice job. But the amount of lather that I got, in loading was just really good. It didn't matter what brush I used. It just really did a great job. The cushion on this soap, first off, because it was able to get such a thick lather, was very nice. The glide, it was a good glide compromise. Now, some soaps, and I must admit, I have a problem with some soaps. They have glide as long as the soap's there, but as soon as the soap is gone, there is no residual glide whatsoever. And so you rinse off your razor and go to kind of do a touch-up stroke or a little bit of burnishing or something like that. And suddenly, lo and behold, there's sticking, there's skipping, there's, it just kind of drags across your face because there is no residual glide. Now, that is not the case at all with the Jeeves of Hudson Street soaps. The other thing that I really enjoyed about the soap was the scent. I mean, quite honestly. Now, another tobacco-type soap that I really enjoy was Cavendish. Had a pipe tobacco scent. This is not a pipe tobacco. This is more a tobacco scent. It's it's not a flavored tobacco scent. Let's put it that way. It's more of a straightforward tobacco scent. Very light, very delicate, good combination, very well balanced with everything else in that soap. And the thing that I enjoy about it is that it lingers, which means after the shave, the scent lingers just a bit, which is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And in fact, there's an aftershave that L'Occitane makes, Bove, I think it's called. But my wife got me some balm of this stuff, and wow, you want to talk about a combination. Yeah, that's because it's also got a tobacco scent. Really, really nice. Yeah, good stuff. I used it with for the most part over the course of the week, or for most of the week, with the Gem Featherweight and a PAL carbon steel blade. Great setup. One of the things that I do with my carbon steel blades is it's a single-edge blade, but one of the things that I do with my carbon steels is I'll take them out and I'll dry them, and I'll lay them on the edge. There's a surround on your counter, or at least on mine, and it's a flat surface, and I can store a razor there or whatnot, very small ledge. And what I'll do is I'll put the blade, after I dry it out, I'll put it on that surround with the sharp end kind of hanging over, so I get air circulation around both sides of the blade, of the sharpened area of that thing. And so far, I've been able to get a blade to last 2 weeks without any problem and still be a very, very nice shaver like that. So that's always good. Now, as well as the featherweight, I also played around a little bit more with my AutoStrops. I tried to get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit happier with my VC4. The VC4 is the last generation of the AutoStrops, and it's the one that has the safety bar that is extended a little bit further out from the edge of the blade, and quite honestly, it wasn't working for me. It didn't do well. It did all right. It's a razor and everything, but a razor is all about angles, and because the VC4 has the safety bar so far forward, in order to get the correct angle to allow the blade to actually do any cutting of stubble, you have to get fairly close in. There's that distance. And it just, like, under the nose and stuff like that, you just couldn't get it to do it. There's just no way. And so that was a little bit annoying. And I like the blade holding setup of that thing. That's really nice and convenient and easy to deal with. But the safety bar, all right, I'll say it. I'm just kind of disgusted with that portion of the razor. I really am. It's really a shame. But at the same time, it was one of those things where, you're sitting there and one part of the shave it's frustrating you, and it's, I don't know, not really, it's just frustrating. And you're not happy and everything, but your shave is still going very, very well because of one component. And in this case, the thing that saved the day was the Jeeves of Hudson Street soap, because it was such a nice soap. Lathered fabulously, did great in the electric scuttle, good glide, good cushion. Just overall, I was so very pleased with that soap. And for the times that I was trying to play with my VC4, well, it saved the day. So good job, highly recommended. Speaking of angles, I finally sat down and watched the full commercial for the micro touch from the guy on from Rick on Pawn Stars. And you know, there's a guy in it, you know, Rick doesn't shave with it, he just talks about it, but there's a guy in that commercial that is shaving with this micro one touch. And if you ever notice this commercial, take a look at it. He is going essentially straight down with that thing. Even if there is a blade in that razor, it's not doing a darn bit of good because his angle is so monstrously incorrect. He is pulling the razor down at the same angle as one would use with a cartridge razor. And it is humorous. It really is. It's like they're trying to sell a razor and they're trying to demonstrate it and they're not even using it right. And people will look at that, and the thing is that they'll look at that, and because they've used cartridge razors, they may actually be comfortable with it because it looks like the normal angle that you would use when shaving, even though it's wrong. It's another testament, I guess, to the craze of marketing, and that, you know, well, if you sugarcoat this and if you put the ketchup on the burger just right with a syringe, you know, it'll look fabulous. It really is amazing the way that they do things. And of course, you know, coming out of the Christmas season, we saw a glut of marketing and advertisements and things like that. But it struck me as just humorous at multiple different levels that they're trying to sell the micro one-touch razor, and the guy that's demonstrating it isn't even holding the dang thing right. All right. Well, here's one for you. Over the holiday season here, I did a little bit of traveling and traveled around in the truck. And on part of that travel, I happened to be, well, in the rain, and in some serious rain. And in fact, it was the rain that flooded parts of Missouri and Illinois and, you know, beat up on Texas a good bit. Yeah, I was in that rainstorm. And lo and behold, the mobile studio let me down. Yeah, the mobile studio sprung a leak. So here I am driving down the highway, and my whole family, firmly emplaced in the car, snug and warm, and things going fairly well, and driving through the rain. I've got Rain-X on the window, so it's beading off just beautifully. I can see, and everything's good with the world, and I look in the rearview mirror to see a cascade of water coming down from the headliner onto the rear window on the inside of the cab. Not good. Okay, so if you happen to have a vehicle that has a roof-mounted third stoplight, you know, the one in the center. Now, so if it's roof-mounted, like in an SUV or a pickup truck or something like that, it is installed in such a way that the wires can get to it, and there's a gasket in between the metal of the roof and the light assembly. Well, unbeknownst to me, however, found out after dealing with this situation, the gasket, particularly on my model of truck, has a tendency to dry out, crack, shrink, etc., and basically make itself, well, useless. Yeah, just what you need for something that, holds water out of the vehicle. Jeez. Anyhow, and of course, the vehicle's out of warranty, and you can't buy a replacement gasket from the vendor. You got to buy the whole light assembly. It's like, the list goes on and on and on. However, my point here is not to complain. I can fix this. This is not a problem. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because the fix is maybe not what you would think. Anyhow, the reason that I'm talking about this is to ask all of you folks out there, because especially in winter weather and things like that, the question is, are you prepared? Now, typically, I am. And on a long trip, I try to be more so than not. I've got water, blankets, food, extra clothes, things for ice and snow, things like that. But one thing that I did not have, and which I now do have, is tape. Whether that be duct tape or, in my case, in this case, clear waterproof tape, specifically Gorilla Glue brand. That tape has really done a good job. But do you have tape in your vehicle for those times when something leaks, something breaks, something falls off, you get in an accident and, knock a reflector out, or, a light assembly off, and you need some way to secure that back to the vehicle so you can get on the road and get on your way? Well, I did not. And of course, it was raining. So to start off with, I put some paper towels up in the headliner to absorb some of the water so that it wouldn't be dripping down on the occupants of the vehicle, and so we could control the the water a little bit better. And I proceeded to go to a Home Depot. Now, I do happen to have a couple of umbrellas in the truck. So, grabbing an umbrella, I opened the umbrella and went out in the rain and had some paper towels with me and dried the area off while I was huddling under said umbrella up there at the roof, and proceeded to seal it up with some clear tape. And yes, it did take care of the problem, because we went through about 6 hours of much heavier rain with no ill effects and, thankfully, no leakage. So all is good with the world. So the question is, are you prepared? Do you have tape in your vehicle? It would be a good thing. I try to think of these things ahead of time. I missed that one. Dang it. Anyhow, how am I going to fix this? Okay, so you can't buy the gasket. The light assembly itself is in fine shape. I mean, even if it's dirty or something, I can wash it out and dry it out with a hot air gun or whatever, and get things the way I need them. The question is, how do you remake that gasket? Now, a lot of people would take RTV, silicone caulk, something like that, and stick it on there and then just smush the whole assembly back together again. And in certain situations, that might work. The problem is that if you do that, it will adhere to both plastic and paint. And so ever getting that assembly back out to change light bulbs or do anything like that would be, well, exceedingly difficult. And then cleaning the area up to then reseal it would also be a bit, well, time-consuming and difficult. Now, one way around that is if you are going to use some type of RTV or silicone caulk or something like that, if you put the bead of silicone on, or RTV, on one side, say in this example, the light side, in other words, the plastic assembly that the light is in, and let it just sit there. And what will happen is, as it cures, the outside of that bead will become less tacky, if you will. It'll dry, and it will form essentially a round bead of caulk or RTV with an outer rubber casing on it. It's still kind of squishy. It will still seal just very nicely, but it won't stick to your paint. So that's one way. Now, the other way, which is the way that I'm going to do it, is the way that we used to do custom windows and things like that back in the day, and custom vans and stuff like that. It is a foam core butyl tape. So it's a round piece of foam that is covered in rubber, butyl rubber, which has a tendency to kind of flow a little bit into areas, especially when it's warm. But it's what we used to use to seal things like windows. When you put in a custom window into the side of a van or something, you always had the round butyl tape, foam core type. And so I've got some of that on order. It should be here in a couple of days, and I'll take it and put a bead of that around the light assembly and kind of splice it onto itself at a fairly good angle, so that I get coverage all the way around, and there's pretty much an invisible joint. Slap it back in, and that butyl tape will, I can pull the light assembly in and out as many times as I want, and that butyl tape will be just fine. And if I ever need to replace it, well, I'll have a little extra. Not a bad deal. Cost me about, $6. In the meantime, the Gorilla tape that I have on there is holding the job nicely. I don't believe it'll damage the paint when I take it off. I'll clean it up with some alcohol and get all the residue off, and then throw some wax back on the paint, make everything nice and shiny again. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be back in business with a mobile studio that doesn't rain while on the inside. Now, another thing that I did as I was traveling about the country was I used a couple of my gas cans, threw them in the back of the truck with a siphon tube. Why the siphon tube? Well, because holding up a 5-gallon can to pour it into the snout of the car there, into the gas tank, is kind of a pain. Now, I've got a cover on the bed of my truck that's fairly sturdy. And it's much nicer if I can take a can, open it up, put it on top of the cover, and let it just sit there, and then use a siphon to put the gas wherever I want it to go. It's a whole lot easier. So I've got a siphon with one of those squeeze bulbs on it, and so you stick one end of the siphon tube in the gas can, and the other end of the tube down into the gas tank where you want it. Squeeze the bulb a couple of times, automatically starts to siphon, and away you go. And it's pretty easy. No muss, no fuss. The hardest part is, lifting the can around. And I don't have to hold it. Don't have to stand there. No issues. It's pretty sweet. Anyhow, I put the gas cans, I had 2 of them in the back of the truck with a couple extra blankets and a tarp and, some extra supplies there, strapped up to the front of the bed of the truck. And they rode back there. Now, when you think about it, the back end of a pickup truck is probably not the most cushioned place you can be. And those gas cans rode in such a way that the gas can was essentially resting up against the lip of the back of the bed. And as you hit bumps and did all that, I'm sure that gas can moved around a good bit. When I took them out, the powder coat paint wasn't damaged at all. There was no issues, no marks, no nothing. You couldn't even tell that they'd been used. So very happy with that. The durability of those gas cans so far has been rather remarkable. I'm really pleased again with the purchase. And the whole time, like I said, I have a bed on the back of the truck, and so it seals up. I mean, it's watertight, and because of that, there's not a lot of airflow back there except when you open things up, and no fumes. No fumes at all. I mean, no smell of gasoline or leakage or anything like that. So that in and of itself is great. Now, let's see, what was it? Probably about 2 months ago, I guess, when I got my newer cans, I had filled them up and put them in the back, and they'd fallen down on their sides. And I rode around. I kind of forgot about them. I actually rode around for almost 3 weeks, 2 weeks anyhow, back and forth with those cans laying on their sides. No issues, no smells. I'm sure that gas was sloshing around something fierce. But it never got out, and neither did the smells. So, all in all, if you're looking for a good way to haul gas, one of those NATO cans with the cam locks on it, yeah, that's the way to go. I'm probably going to buy a couple of cans just to keep in the other vehicles, for emergency purposes. Just throw a gallon or two in there, and put them in the other vehicles, and don't have to worry about ventilation issues or fumes or anything like that. So that's my report there. And like I said, I try to be prepared. I just miss it every now and then, and don't think about all the contingencies. And quite honestly, that's where experience kind of kicks in. At least you try, and if you have enough, it's to a point where you kind of go, well, okay, this is not a perfect situation, but it's pretty close, and I can make do with what I have with not too much of an issue. In fact, if I'd have had some duct tape, probably would have been okay, but I was right next to a Home Depot, so it worked out. But all in all, gas cans functioned flawlessly. Now, the siphon tube, the siphon tube is an interesting animal. It will have some fumes associated with it. One of the things that I do to help that is I put it in a double layer of Ziploc plastic bags. I got a big one. I got a 1 gallon size and then a 2.5 gallon size, and so I'll double Ziploc it up in that thing so that if there are any fumes, they're contained for the most part. And all in all, it's not too bad. Now, there is a company that actually makes like a toolbox that fits in the front of a Ford, which is what I have. And I thought about getting one because sometimes, things that smell and things that you want to store that are outside of the bed of the truck or outside the cab, be a good place to put stuff like that. So, I don't know. It's something to think about maybe in the future. We'll see. But all in all, real happy. Had a mobile studio with a little bit of extra, capacity just because of those fuel cans, and really enjoyed that experience. It was pleasant. It was nice to have that, security blanket, and all in all, good stuff. Well, I would like to say thank you to a vendor. A special vendor, as a matter of fact, because this vendor happens to fill, a niche. And that vendor is none other than Tryablade. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out Tryablade, Tryablade.com is the place to go. He has an assortment of double-edged, single-edged, and shavette, the longer, I don't know, I guess they call them professional blades, single-edged blades for shavettes and things. He's got an assortment, and what he does is he buys them in bulk, or more bulk than I would, and then sells them individually. Or, you can buy a whole pack, but, he'll take a little bit for it, but it's not much. Okay, now, here's what happened. I was sitting there, and I had been talking about my valet AutoStrops for a while. I've been talking about, my VC1, which I really, really like. The VC2, which isn't bad. It's got a different blade holder, but all in all, it's not too bad. I don't have a VC3, but I have been talking about my VC4 and, how it's not quite coming up to snuff, okay, because of the distance between the safety bar and the blade edge, okay? But the whole time, the thing that makes the old valet AutoStrops so, unique, I suppose, is the fact that there are really only two blades that fit the silly things. Number one is the original valet blade, which, you might be able to find, and then it's in, dubious condition, and you'd either have to hone it or, something with it. I don't know. I don't have one. Or the other option is to, there's actually three. You can modify a spined single-edged blade to fit, okay? But it's, you got to snap parts of the blade off and things like that, but you can make it work. Okay. The other option, of course, is to use the Feather Spineless single-edge blade. Now, this is the same blade that they sell in the One Razor. Okay, so with that said, I sent a message to Tryablade and said, hey, I've been talking about valet AutoStrops, and I've had multiple people ask me, where do you get blades? And it really would be convenient and nice if Tryablade had some of these things on hand. And with just that as the request, no more information, just that, I understand I have a podcast and I have an audience, but, we're not talking like I've got 10,000 people out there waiting on every spoken word that I say. I understand that. But just on that request, this vendor went out and got Feather Spineless blades and put them in stock and sent me a note and said, hey, I got them in stock. Well, I immediately went and looked at the price. They're 95 cents a piece. Okay, now, if you happen to have checked out the one blade, okay, they're selling them for like $1. It's 5 cents under that. Okay. Well, I immediately ordered 20 of them, which is 2 packs because they come in a pack of 10. And I'm going to, every time I'm going to reorder blades of just about any kind, I'm going to go to Tryablade because that's a vendor I can support. To be able to do that, where if you just want to try one blade, you can go and buy one blade. See if you like it, and then, either continue buying from Tryablade or, go somewhere else, but hopefully continue buying from Tryablade because, well, he's obviously willing to do what it takes to fill a need. And I do greatly appreciate that. And so I want to say here on the air, thank you. Thank you very much to Tryablade for filling a need within a market. So, granted, we're a niche market, so he's filling a niche within a niche. Good stuff. Anyhow, really, it's not often. It really is not often that you can go to a vendor of a product and say, hey, it sure would be nice if you did this, and have them respond with that kind of speed. Now, the other thing is that once I placed my order, I got it through the United Postal Service in 4 days, 4 or 5 days. It wasn't long. For me, shopping with Tryablade has always been a fantastic experience. Really has. It's easy to find the blades. The other thing I like about it is that, I find that I can look at the blades because he's got information on the blades. Who makes them, what their coatings are, where they're made, Germany, Pakistan, Israel, Russia. It's interesting. It's fun just to go there and look to see what he has. And heck, he even has my carbon steel blades, my PAL carbon steel blades. And if it wasn't for the fact that I buy them at my local gas station just to support them a little bit, I'd probably get them from Tryablade. It's fun, and it's a good place to get a lot of information on blades. And if you happen to like certain blades, it's a good place to go and figure out, okay, what was it that I liked about them? Was it the material, the coating, where they were made, etc., etc.? Anyhow, again, thank you very much to Tryablade because that is outstanding service. And like I've said on this show many, many times, we have vendors that are, well, beyond fantastic. I mean, they come out with new and innovative products. Every time you turn around, there's something new out there. There's something fun, and usually it is done with input from the wet shaving community, whether that be on forums or Reddit or wherever. And that's the kind of community, that's the kind of communication and relationship that we would all like to have with, well, all of our vendors, no matter what they sell us. And it really doesn't happen really at all. And so to have a vendor that is willing to go and do that on such short notice and step up, as it were, to jump in and fill that niche. Again, thank you. Go check out Tryablade. The Feather Single Edge Spineless Blade is, I'll put a link to them. You can get those on Tryablade. They're like 95 cents a piece, and those are the blades to use in a valet AutoStrop of any generation, VC1, VC2, VC3, or VC4. They all work with the Feather Spineless Blade, and they make the thing a lightsaber for stubble. It, with the gears on the side of it, it's got that gear punk look, that steampunk look to it, which is just really, really cool. And it is a piece of nostalgia that is well made and can be usable once again, and gives me, anyhow, absolutely fantastic shaves. My favorite is the VC1, just because that's the original. It seems to work better. It's shaves closer. Then Gillette bought the thing, and well, oh well. But the original VC1 is my preference, and with a Feather Spineless Blade, it is probably the closest thing to a straight razor with a safety bar on it that I have, and it is affectionately known as my straight razor on a stick. And it really does a good job. So if you've wondered what all the fuss is about the one razor, and if it's really as good as it says, well, realistically, the one razor, granted, a razor design in and of itself is good, but it doesn't do a whole lot of good if it doesn't have a good blade in it. And so, if you can find yourself a valet AutoStrop, it'll give you an opportunity to try out one of the Feather Spineless blades and realize just how smooth those things actually are, and take your shaving experience to a new level, and hopefully enjoy it the whole time. And like I said, if you can, give Tryablade a shot, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I know I'm never disappointed by them. So give them a shot. Again, Tryablade.com. All right, the shave of the day today. The shave of the day today was another one of Jeeve's of Hudson Street's soap. This one was Mountain Rain. Again, beautiful soap, lathered so very, very nicely. It really did. I'm really, really enjoying these soaps. So last time I was using Turkish Bath, which is his tobacco and bay, and this one is called Mountain Rain. And I have to look at the ingredient list when I get back to the studio, just to be able to talk about it. But within, in the car here, or in the mobile studio, in the truck, car, my kids would have a field day with that one. It's a truck, Dad. Anyhow, in the mobile studio, I've got a Gillette round handle, old type, and threw a different blade in it. I can't remember what blade I have in the silly thing. I'll talk about that tomorrow, I guess. I've got 2 shaves on it at this point. It doesn't do a bad job. In fact, it's brass, and I find that the brass doesn't stick. I mean, it responds better to glide, even if the soap itself doesn't have any glide. Now, the good news is that with the Jeeves of Hudson Street, the Mountain Rain, I don't need to worry about that, because that soap, it lathers so very, very nicely, and it has really good cushion and really good residual glide. Now, it's not a glide monster like, something like Cremo or some of the others, but it really does a good job. Smells wonderful. Just a very light, delicate scent. I'm really, really enjoying that. There are some scents that are light and you just really can't smell them. The Jeeve soaps, it's, so far, they've been light scents, but they've been present. They're definitely there. And it's not so light that you can't notice them. It's just that when you do notice them, they're light. they're not all in your face. They're just, I don't know, just kind of hanging out. It's really relaxing, very cool. But it lathers so very well. Again, thirsty soap, 2 teaspoons of water in it to get a good lather. And it has been cold here. It was 22 degrees outside when I came out. Now, just to put this in perspective, a week ago, it was in the 70s. So the temperatures have plummeted, and I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed being able to have a hot lather shave because of my electric scuttle. Now, when I say electric scuttle, I've got a coffee hot plate made by Mr. Coffee and a ceramic bowl that I'm using. It's a, I can't remember if it was, I know it's hand painted. I don't believe it's hand thrown. I believe she bought a commercial bowl, commercial ceramic bowl, and then painted it. But the bottom is flat. There's no ridges on it, and so it really absorbs the heat out of that little ceramic hot plate that is made by Mr. Coffee and used to keep your coffee warm. Does a great job. But putting those two together and using that as a lather bowl, what I found works really, really well is I will load the brush and then, start the lather going in the lather bowl after it's, sat on my hot plate a while, full of warm water, soaking my brush. Now, the hot plate being on, it kind of preheats the bowl a little bit, and the hot water helps a little bit as well. Kind of get some heat into the thing. Now, once I do that, then I'll start the lather, put a little bit of water in it, 2 teaspoons in this case, and continue with the lather until I've got it pretty good. Then what I'll do is I will set the bowl, the brush with the lather in it and all that on the little coffee warmer plate and walk off and go do something, whether I'm brushing my teeth or getting the clothes I'm going to wear or something. Just, give it a minute or two. And what I found is that it maintains warmth. It warms up the lather, gets a little bit warmer, and it actually thickens up just a little bit. And so after that, I have an absolute lather machine. I mean, with normal loading of the brush, I'm doing it with a boar's brush. Now, the Jeeve soap is a little bit softer than most soaps. So that helps as well. But with my Samog boar brush, I'm finding that I'm getting, easily 3 passes, and potentially I could get 4, maybe 5 passes. And we're talking full passes, not just, touch-ups or anything, but, 4 or 5 easy full passes before I even think about running out of soap and running out of lather. And the thing is that the whole time it is nice, warm lather, which really makes a difference. It takes the experience almost to the next level. It really does. It's just, it's pleasant. And so I do really enjoy that and kind of look forward to it every morning, even if it's cold, it's like, okay, that's all right. I'm getting out of a cold, into a cold room out of a warm bed, but it's okay because here pretty soon I'm going to shave with warm lather, and man, that's good stuff. So I've really enjoyed that. Again, the Jeeves is really performing well. The Mountain Rain, yeah, excellent smell. To the point where it lingers around long enough for me anyhow that I walk out of the house half the time without even thinking about putting on an aftershave, just because, well, I don't need it, and it just lingers a little bit, which is nice. But all in all, yeah, it's good. Now on the brass, on the old Gillette, what I found is that the brass has, by its very nature, a tendency to almost self-lubricate and glide over the skin without skipping or jumping or snagging or anything like that. So I find that really nice. The other thing that's interesting is I have some razors on a double-edged blade. If you put it in a 2-piece razor, for example, most 2-piece or 3-piece razors, counting the handle, I suppose. But when you put it in the bottom cap and put the top cap on, you have the blade itself, the edge, the cutting edge, kind of guarded with the safety bars or the open combs or whatever, But the ends are typically sticking out. Now, I've had a couple razors where those ends sticking out, and I don't know really what part I was hitting up against, but I do remember it being very annoying because those ends would catch me every now and then and scratch just a little bit. Now, the thing that's interesting is this old Gillette that I have, even though the ends of the blade stick out a little bit, I don't get that. I don't get scratches from where the end cap on a normal razor would be that protects those. And so it's curious because I'm now trying to discover, just, as I shave and as I play around and experiment with them, was it a situation where the end cap was, or the end of the blade was, I don't know, kind of sharp and scratchy because of the way it was manufactured? Or if it was the design of the razor and the fact that it just didn't cover up well enough. Well, it's just a curiosity. It's kind of the fun of having these things. You play around with them and you think to yourself, okay, what is actually causing this problem? What is causing this issue that I'm having, and why is it doing what it's doing? So it is kind of fun. Now, the other thing that I've noticed, and this has happened on all razors of this type, and I really haven't run into a razor that doesn't have this issue to some extent, and that is the issue of blade alignment. Now, on the Gillettes, the twist to open, the ones with the silo doors, the adjustables and such that have the bar, those are usually pretty well aligned and do a good job of evening out the razor from side to side so that on both sides of the end cap, as you look at the cutting edges, they're evenly adjusted from side to side. In other words, one side is not more blade exposure than the other. They're very even, and so you get very similar shaving on both sides as you use the razor and, turn the head over and shave with the other side of the blade. But the ones that have the pins, whether they're the three-piece razors or whatever, the ones that have the pins that the blade sits on, for some reason those have a tendency, either the pins aren't quite big enough or the blades are designed to, hold a razor that's just a little bit bigger in that area or whatever. I don't know. But there's always a little bit of adjustment that I have to make to get everything evened out. Otherwise, things are, just a bit askew, and I've got one side that's one end of the blade, if you will, with a little bit more exposure than the other, and it's not even, if it was even, you could call it a slant. But it's not. It's like, okay, this is just off. And that off will produce irritation if you don't watch out for it. So it's something to look out for if you happen to have the type of razor where your blade sits on pins or, aligns in that fashion. Or even some of the twist opens, I suppose, could have this problem. But take a look and make sure that your blade alignment is good, because it can cause a little bit of irritation. And if you have a blade that is a little bit prone to irritation anyhow, it'll just kind of exacerbate the situation. So, just a tip. And so far I've really liked the Jeeve soaps. I look forward to shaving with them, and isn't that the whole point? Is to look forward to shaving every day. Okay, so here's one for you. Driving down the road and it's raining, and I'm looking out the rear view mirror and I see water streaming down the back window. Okay. Problem is that the water streaming down the window was streaming, on the inside of the window, because the gasket seal that I have for my, let's see, what do they call that? The third brake light? The one that's in the top of the cab, up, in the body of the vehicle in the center, up high. Well, the gasket for that was leaking. So, okay. So, in the moment, we repaired that quickly, and I've talked about that in other places with a little bit of tape. and taped it all up. I ordered not a new seal, but some gasket material, and by that, it is foam butyl. Let's see, how do they call that? It is foam core butyl gasket material. Okay, and what this stuff is it's a tube. It's basically a round core of foam, black foam in this case, with a butyl rubber wrap around it. Now, butyl rubber is an interesting thing. First off, butyl rubber is not cured rubber. It is typically, it's a synthetic rubber, typically, and it has carbon black in it. So it's fairly durable, but it also flows just a little bit, okay, which means that it will fill gaps. It moves. It doesn't necessarily want to stay, it's not rigid. It's not like like an O-ring or something like that. It's actually kind of sticky and it will move around a little bit. In fact, once you cure it, you use it in the tire to hold air. So it's a good sealing substance, and the foam core gives a little bit of cushion. And so this thing used to use it back in the day for putting in custom windows and things like that in vehicles and vans and stuff. And so I purchased some. Now, the stuff that I purchased had an 8mm foam core, which upon arrival and upon use might be a little thick, but that's okay. We'll see how it does. So I took the center or the third brake light out of, removed it. It's got 2 screws to hold it in place. 3 bulbs, kind of pop out, and all is good that way. Took the old seal off, and the interesting thing is that it was very difficult to see where the old seal was in fact leaking. I thought I saw where it was, but it was kind of difficult to tell. It wasn't quite as dried up and cracked and everything as some of the ones that I've seen, but it wasn't really a good seal. It's just kind of cheap and chintzy foam rubber type thing. It's just, I don't know. So anyhow, I then proceeded to take off some of this gasket material, cut the end of the tube at a little bit more than a 45-degree angle, probably about a 30-degree angle, and with a razor blade. And just so happened to have a couple of single-edged spined razor blades running around that were perfect for the job. Imagine that. It's amazing what you can do with your discards. The hardest part about that is getting them back out of the little tea tin that I use for my discard box. And so took that out and put that down in the bottom center. Figuring that if water got all the way to the bottom center, it's dripping down, it's not going up. So put the joint down there. Proceeded to wrap around the light fixture itself and where the old gasket was, and kind of sticking everything where it goes and getting back down to the joint. Cutting the other side at about 30 degrees, sticking it together, and then proceeding to put the bulbs back in and reinstalling the light. It didn't reinstall all the way. Again, because, like I said, the gasket material that I had was, just a bit thick. But that's okay. So I am patiently waiting for it to rain one more time so that, and a good rain at that, so that I can ensure that my gasket worked and that everything's sealed up and that my cab, my mobile studio, will in fact be bone dry, because that's the way we like it in here, especially as I keep putting stuff in here, like, recording stuff and radios and, whatnot. All good stuff. Now, the thing is, and the thing that I really wanted to stress was that, if I had taken this thing to the dealer, okay, it's a fairly easy fix. Took me all of about 30 minutes to fix it, and I was taking my time and talking to my older son at the same time. If I had taken it to the shop, the new light unit, because they don't sell just the gasket, the new light unit would have cost me about $100. And they probably would have charged me about $100, call it $85 to $100 an hour's worth of labor to put it in. I doubt very seriously they would have charged me a half an hour. They may have, but more than likely it would have been an hour. And to the casual observer, you might not have known that it took less time than that. So, call it $200, at least $150. Now, the gasket material itself cost me $10 with shipping, and, the time, well, that was time that I didn't mind spending because, like I said, I was talking to my son anyhow. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can do that, if you just do a little bit of research and, well, like I've said with shaving, try. Well, there's something you don't see every day. It's amazing. I didn't realize this about my mobile studio. Okay, so after having been in maintenance for, oh, good gosh, 30, 35 years when you throw it all together, it has been ingrained in me, rightsy-tightsy, lefty-loosey. Okay? So what that means basically is that if you're a right-handed person and you hold your hand straight out, the way that your hand naturally wants to turn, in other words, clockwise, will tighten or shut a valve or a bolt or whatever. It's rightsy-tightsy. And lefty, which is kind of a, not really the natural desire of your hand to rotate. If you hold your hand out like you're going to grip something, trying to turn it to the left, well, it takes, it's almost like there's a resistance there or something, just because of the way we're built. But if you go in that direction, lefty-loosey, you are now opening something or loosening something. Okay, so rightsy-tightsy, lefty-loosey. So I'm in the mobile studio. I am in the truck. I have replaced something within my digital recorder, and I noticed that the gain is, well, too high. So naturally, I reached down and, if it's too high, then, rightsy-tightsy should close the gain down. Should shut the valve, should tighten things up, right? Oh, I never realized it. The wheels on my gain control on my digital recorder are backwards. Holy cow, clockwise actually gives you more gain instead of less. All right, that's it. I'm gonna have to do something. Yeah, I'm gonna have to remember that. But the thing that's interesting about rightsy-tightsy, lefty-loosey is that if you have that ingrained in your head, it doesn't matter if the valve or bolt is upside down, backwards, if it's facing you, if it's facing away from you. It doesn't matter the orientation. If you can get a hand on it, you can figure out which way you need to turn it in order to loosen it or tighten it. It's real handy. It was real handy in the Navy when you're having to tighten valves that were, under deck plates and behind things and upside down and kind of backwards and, all those places that the naval engineers decide, yeah, this would be a good place to put a valve, somewhere where no one can get to it. Anyhow, apparently the people who put together my digital recorder have never heard of such a thing. Okay, shave of the day today. All right, so I started out with my Samog SOC brush, soaking it. Now, one thing that I've noticed about my Samog, and I'm curious about this, and so, I have a hypothesis. The problem that is occurring with my Samog SOC is every now and then I will lose a bristle. Now, it's typically not more than one, but it's typically a bristle, and it is typically a full length of bristle. It's not like it breaks halfway off or anything like that. It's typically a fairly long chunk of bristle. Now, if I look at this brush, first off, the Samag SOC is a large brush. And so if you look at this brush, and if I put it in my salsa bowls or one of my ceramic bowls, which is usually what I soak it in when I soak my brush in the morning, I noticed that if I prop it up on the edge, I get the main body, if you will, of the brush wet, but I don't necessarily get the part that goes, that final piece that goes into the handle. I don't get that wet. And so I'm wondering is, the reason that we soak brushes is to make them more supple so that they don't break on us and the bristles don't break off. But I wonder if, because I am not actively, soaking that region, if when I lather and, load the brush and do all that, if I'm not putting enough stress on essentially a dry section of bristle, if it doesn't break off. Now I'm soaking these things for, 5, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, however long it takes me to take a shower. And believe me, it takes me a whole lot less time than certain members of the family, teenage son, who takes forever in the shower. And sometimes, especially on cold mornings, uses up all the hot water. Anyhow, I digress. So I'm wondering if with the larger brushes, it wouldn't be better to actually soak the brush in, quite honestly, something like a tall, thin coffee cup, just to ensure that I get all aspects of the bristles soaked. So if anybody knows if the moisture in a bristle, basically migrates all the way through the bristle, if you get the tip wet, does it migrate all the way to the base? That'd be an interesting question. I wonder if Mantic knows. He might. He knows all kinds of nice stuff. So anyhow, I'll have to send him an email or something, or maybe he'll listen to the podcast. I don't know. I'll get around. I've been busy. Good gosh, I've been busy. Anyhow, that's what's been going on with the Samag SOC. So, okay, back to the shave of the day. So the shave of the day, I've been using Jeeves of Hudson Street, which is a soap company made by Brian. Excellent soap. Now I'm using the soap called Conservatory. And at least that's the name on it when I bought it. I don't know if he's changed names or what, but I think it's the same as what he's currently advertising as Mountain Rain. Anyhow, the bottom line is I really, really like his soaps. They lather well, they have good cushion, they have good glide, and they have mild yet very nice scents to them. He had one Turkish bath, which is a tobacco and bay, and oh my goodness, that is excellent. I really enjoy that. It's very nice soap. I've got another one that I need to try, and I'll probably try that starting tomorrow. But I do enjoy his soaps, and I have enjoyed getting back to them. After my brief hiatus here, where I had to go out of town. And it has been very, very nice. Works well so far with double edge, single edge, straight razors. I haven't had any issues. The only problem I had with a straight razor is the other day. And it's only on one side. It's just curious. I've got there's one cheek, and I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to nick myself multiple times on that cheek as a sign of yes, I'm a wet shaver. But it's just one cheek, and it has something to do with the angle that I'm holding the thing. For a blade that's got a point, it nicks me every now and then. Typically when I'm not paying attention. And imagine that. Not paying attention with a straight razor will get you into trouble. Who'd have thought? Anyhow, back to the shave of the day. Geez, I'm wandering all over the place today. Anyhow, so the conservatory soap from Jeeves on Hudson Street, excellent soap. Samog Owners Club brush, and I didn't lose a bristle today, so could be the way I'm soaking it. Heck, I don't know. It's a hypothesis, and we'll see. So still using the old Gillette Blue, and I've got a sharp blade in it. It's it's curious. I took the top cap off to see which blade I had in it. Did a 3-pass shave. Didn't really feel my face between passes. Went and, rinsed, just took the remaining soap off with a towel, threw on some aftershave, and as I was throwing on some aftershave, I realized that there was one place that really hadn't shaved at all. Okay, so that blade is done. It's been in there about, a little over a week, so, but that blade is done. It's, I've got a bunch of blades from Tryablade that I got in, and, I can safely say, sharp, it's a nice blade, middle of the road, probably do you good for 3-4 shaves maybe, and then it's like, off to the dustbin, it's, So, now, the Gillette Old. Okay, one thing that I noticed about the Gillette Old. Okay, so I have commented on many occasions that I really enjoy my my AutoStrop VC1 because the open comb is so close to the blade edge that I can get in close under the nose. Well, I can also do that on my Gillette Old, and in fact, my Gillette Short Comb New is like that as well. In fact, there seems to be a transition sometime in there where Gillette decided, we cannot have these open combs or safety bars running quite that close to the blade. Somebody's going to get hurt or whatever, and slowly inch them, millimetered, brought them away from the edge of the blade to make it, just that much harder to get a clean shave under the nose. So I'm wondering if that's why I don't have an affinity for some of the older razors, because, they just shave closer. I can get in there better, and I can do things better, and if it'll shave everything else well and do that too, that's just bonus points. So, if you're out there and you're making a new razor, don't be afraid to bring the comb or the safety bar up a little bit closer to the blade edge. Some of us enjoy that. Anyhow, that was the shave of the day. Finished up with some fine aftershave, some clean vetiver. Seemed to go well, and just kind of give me a hint of, spring, if you will, while I travel around in the cold. And, there's supposed to be a snowstorm. Snowstorm. Yeah, right. There's supposed to be snow, okay? And so in South Carolina, snow is, oh my God, let's shut down everything, grab the milk and eggs and bread and, God knows what they're going to make. But anyhow, it's funny. Everybody goes for the eggs. Nobody buys bacon. Okay. If I'm going to the store to get stuff for a long shut-in period, let's see. What's on the list? Beer, eggs, bacon. Okay, after that, what's left? I'm kidding. I'll probably, get the makings for a good soup or something like that, and stoke up the fire, throw a Dutch oven on, and sit around and cook soup all day. Yeah, life is good. Anyhow, hopefully you guys are having a good time. I enjoy being back on a podcast. That's for sure. It is good stuff all around. Part of my life that I do enjoy. I have had a few people ask me, via Twitter or Messenger or wherever, where are you? It's like, I'll let you know, but it was because of what I was doing, I would have much rather been doing the podcast. Anyhow, yeah.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.
All righty. Well, it has been a long time since I have been hooked up to the mobile studio here. And quite honestly, I'm glad of it. I'm glad I'm back. I was dealing with some stuff that, you just don't want to deal with, quite honestly. Had a death in the family, close family, and had to go take care of that. And, still struggling with that. Still trying to figure out which end is up and get back into the normal routine. Not sleeping real good, just a lot of stuff on my mind kind of thing. And, it's a little bit different than work, it's interesting. We stress and we struggle about work all the time, but then in the end we hopefully come to the realization that there are other things that are, just a whole lot more important than work. I mean, work's good and all, don't get me wrong, it's nice, it's important, but, it's not the be-all, end-all, and there's a reason that we work, and sometimes it's important to keep that in perspective. So, there you go. Just one of those things. I mean, it happens. We're all guaranteed an end. This is, it's kind of like, walking into a room. You're guaranteed at some point that you will go out of that room. It's inevitable. And, sometimes we need to think about that. Now, the thing that it has done is it has really heightened my awareness of, being prepared is kind of a cliche, being a scout leader and everything else, but that's kind of exactly what it is. And, you've probably heard for years and years that anybody over 18 years old should have a will, should have a living will and healthcare stuff and things like that, so that the decisions that you want to be made can be made if you are incapacitated, and so that, things that are part of your estate, in other words, the stuff that you own, goes to the people that you want to with very little fuss, instead of having to go through, the state. Luckily, that wasn't the case here, that I had to deal with, but it does, it did for me anyhow, bring up a very important thing in that, I have a will. I've had a will for years. In fact, we're getting ready to rewrite the will, just because of the age of my children. So, it's that's not something that you do all the time, but it's something that you do every now and then, just to kind of update and upgrade and reevaluate. But the thing that I found out about, and the thing that unfortunately in this case was missing, was something called a supplemental letter, or a letter of instruction, basically for the person that is dealing with the estate, your executor, your children, whatever, a listing of where stuff is, what is it, who's named, who's, those kind of things, Most of us have bank accounts. Okay. Where are they? Who do you bank with? Especially if it's online banking. What's your password? Maybe not your password, but at least who's the contact person? How do we get a hold of a human being to, if something was to happen to you and your wife or children have to let them know that, hey, there's been a demise and, things need to pass on. It's interesting. a little bit of research that I did, I found out that there's actually insurance companies out there that have been investigated. But why? Well, because they didn't pay not claims, they didn't pay out to beneficiaries. And the reason that they didn't pay out to beneficiaries is because the beneficiaries never knew that the insurance policy was in existence and therefore never asked for the money. So it really behooves you, if you're going to go to the trouble of having an insurance policy and of having, well, assets, to let someone know, especially after you're gone, that they exist. And, that can be within the document package that your will is, and, sealed up so that, it's not out there in public. It's, hopefully locked up and safe and everything else. But it's available. Found out, for example, that the individual involved had a bunch of stuff on cell phone, didn't know the cell phone password, couldn't get into the cell phone. Okay, now what do? Okay, so take a death certificate and a cell phone down to the cell phone store and say, okay, look, this is what's going on, help. I don't know if that's possible. Don't know. Didn't get to stay around long enough to determine that. But those kind of things are what I'm talking about. And then the other thing is, within that letter of instruction, because of this, I've been working on mine. In that letter of instruction, I have also gone through the things that I have that, and who I want them to go to. And I've pretty much narrowed it down fairly specifically. And the reason that I did that is, okay, there is a lot of emotion in times like this. I mean, there just is. It's a natural human reaction. There's a lot of pent-up emotion and a lot of feelings that are out on the table and everything else. If I have the ability beforehand to say, look, this is where I want my stuff to go, and to at least make that initial cut, if you will, the members of the family can trade and haggle and do whatever afterwards. I don't care. That's up to them. But the initial emotional aspect of figuring out and calculating, well, who gets what and how is it fair and all this, I'm taking that out of the picture by doing it myself. And at least listing there and hoping that, my wishes are respected. And at least that allows for some guidance, some understanding, some, those kind of things. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible because, there's enough stress and pain and everything else that goes along with those kind of issues. And, if I can make it, while I'm thinking about it, if I can make it easier, then, well, that's what I'm going to do. Anyhow, that was kind of what I had to deal with, but like I said, it is very nice to be back, and we'll try to get back into the swing of things to get this podcast back up and running.